You're listening to The Real Short Box, a comic book podcast made for geeks by geeks.
Welcome, everyone, to The Real Short Box. My name, the pontificator, the doctor of pop culture, Kevin. And to my left, it is the third of his name, the man from the Midwest, the man from a state that has two O's and an H and an I in its name, and the state of Ohio.
Yes.
And then right in front of me, he's also from this very strange state known as Ohio. His name, our special guest, who has been a guest on a previous program, but he's back again, Mr. Darin Munnell.
Well, thank you for that mispronunciation of my last name, Kevin, but I love the intensity.
Munnell.
Yeah, it sounds French, but it's actually not.
Is it German?
It's actually English.
English?
A long story that I really won't get into, but, my father, we finally proved to him the name was English because, my father was adopted, so we didn't know. We knew he was Irish, but we thought that was maybe a German name.
Is it Canterbury Tale English?
I'm not sure, sir.
Because it sounds like
He didn't write it. Don't worry.
He didn't write it.
No.
And on a side note, I just want you to know I met a person today who was in an acting class with Bret the Hitman Hart.
Really?
Yeah.
The last of the Hearts.
Yes, sadly.
The last, yes.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he's the last Heart.
Oh my God.
British Bulldog was the first, right?
Well, British Bulldog was his brother-in-law.
Right. And then Owen.
Owen died.
And Neidhart.
Keith, his brother.
Yeah.
And Neidhart, is he gone?
Neidhart.
Yeah, Neidhart just, last in August.
And, of course, Stu Hart, 15 or so years ago.
Well, of course, he was up in age.
Yeah, he's the last Hart.
Wow. That's almost like Kevin Von Erich being the last Von Erich.
Yes, absolutely.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. But we are here to talk about, what are we here to talk about? Oh, yeah. We're here to talk about, okay, so like 10 years ago, 2008, something happened. Something big.
Something very special.
Something so fucking big, guys, that
it requires a curse word to describe it.
Yes, Disney now is able to buy Fox. 20th Century Fox. God damn, guys. Disney did not have this money back then. They may have had it like tucked away in places and investments and shit, but they didn't have this. They weren't flush with cash like they are now. They're fucking rolling in it over there. And the reason why is because of one movie. One movie that set the bar and created a universe.
Set the tone, because as I spoke about years before it came out, if it's done right, it's basically a combination of Batman and James Bond.
Yep. And what are we talking about?
We're talking about the Mr. Favreau directed film, Iron Man.
Yes, Iron Man. And we are very, very lucky to have somebody that was on set for the filming of Iron Man, and that would be Mr. Darin Munnell here. That we're so lucky to have here for our podcast to talk a little bit about it. But before we get into that, we want to talk a little bit more about Iron Man himself.
Yes.
Kind of dive in a little bit into
the character.
The caricature.
And how Mr. Robert Downey Jr. was the perfect person.
Right. You look at somebody. Iron Man was somebody that struggled with addiction.
Yes.
Do we know anyone like that played that?
Mr. Downey Jr.
Yes.
I mean, think about it. A couple years or 3 years before that, he did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. That was kind of like the beginning of his comeback.
Right. And guys, if you have not seen that, Darin, you can attest to that. He was brilliant in that.
Oh, fabulous.
Shane Black movie, I believe?
Yes. Shane Black directed. Shane Black gave him his reboot, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Val Kilmer, to be honest.
Yes. Yes.
They were both great in it. But that film, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, kind of got the ball rolling. It was funny because not long before that, Robert Downey Jr. was like only in the news for, what did he do? It was like during some filming. He was in a movie with Annette Bening. And the only thing I can remember about it is this song, "Don't Sit Under That Apple Tree with Anybody Else But Me."
What would that be? In Dreams?
I don't know. It might have been.
I want to say that's what
he had like a long hair or something. It was weird.
Yeah.
And during that filming, I think is when he had another drug issue thing going on, and he ended up in some little girl's bedroom, sleeping in her bed. Little girl wasn't there, obviously, but he was there in her bedroom. So shit got real, and they were like, oh no, we can't afford to insure him anymore. This is crazy. So his career was almost pretty much done. You know, there was no way to redeem this guy. And it was sad because, as we all know, he's very talented. He's been around forever. Was he or was he not? Thank you. I was just going to say, was he or was he not in Weird Science?
I mean, he was in Weird Science. He was into Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, if you remember.
Yes, he was.
Great hair. There is a film called Less Than Zero. I don't particularly care for it, but it is a very telling reality of drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And he obviously was Academy Award nominated as Charlie Chaplin.
That's right.
Yes.
He's obviously very talented. And I have to be honest, and I won't get into my story on Iron Man just yet, but by the time I actually went to work there, I have to be honest, I was sick and tired of hearing about his potential. I was sick and tired of hearing about what he could be, because he wasn't being that person at that current moment. And there's so many other talented people that should be working. But obviously, when I worked with him, I had a very different experience we'll get into in a little bit.
Gotcha. Well, that can make all the sense in the world once you're when you're sitting on the outside of something and you're, I don't want to say more judgmental, but you don't know the scenario as well. You don't know the person, and then when you get a little more involved and you get to know the person a little more, anyway, working with them a little bit more, it makes all the difference in the world, or it can. So that's important to know. So Favreau.
Mr. Favreau, who did, was it Zura? I can't even say the word.
Zathura.
And Elf.
And Elf.
And Elf, from that fame. And
of course, what was his first film? Him and Vince Vaughn.
Swingers. Directed by Doug Liman.
Yes.
Yeah. So if
Identity.
you look at these films that Favreau's been in and starred in, Favreau was also in PCU, if I recall.
He was. He was in Rudy as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we
Great
go.
role in Rudy.
There we go.
So he's had his acting chops. He's been on set. He's gotten his way around. He knows his stuff. They gave him this directing job, and honestly, not a lot of people really excited about it. They didn't seem to be with him as a director.
Marvel Studios was taking a chance.
Marvel was taking a chance. But if you've seen
their first big,
inaugural film.
Now, if I remember working at ArcLight, Zathura came out then around that time, and I think we were all working there.
2005.
Yeah. And that movie was really good for what it was. It was like Jumanji in space, kind of space Jumanji.
Precisely.
And he worked with robots and things and special effects and stuff in space, and it was really cool. And I was like,
good testing ground.
I was like, he's gonna be okay. I thought that in my head. I was like, he's gonna be okay. But of course, there's hesitation that comes in with anybody, and with most people. But with the studio, with Marvel, they put everything they had into this.
That's right.
A lot of times people don't understand how important it was for this movie to succeed.
That's right.
Because up till this point, Marvel had basically leased away their livelihood.
Yep.
They'd given the rights away or sold the rights, leased them to Sony, to Fox, to Lionsgate. They just, everybody and anybody that would give their characters, doil them out to. And the only thing they really had in-house was their animated stuff that they were doing here and there, but they decided to take a chance.
Take a chance on what at the time was considered a C-list character.
Very much so, C-list character.
Sadly.
Which honestly, even to this day, if you look on the shelves for comic books, I don't know how well this comic book sells. I don't.
The modern version? Oh, yeah. No, I think in the 70s, especially when, times were a little more trippy, Iron Man is kind of trippy, he travels across dimensions, travels across time. I think that works a lot better.
Fighting against guys like the Mandarin,
Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
Recently I read one where him and Doctor Doom traveled through time, and they were trying to solve some issue or something. It was really cool. But it was a trade too. I always go for those $5 trades when I go to these conventions. They always have a whole section of $5 trades. And I'm drawn to it. I'm like, I gotta go there. Because I don't want to spend a lot on something if I don't know anything about it. But sometimes you can find some real gems. And that was a pretty good story. So I'll give them that. Credit where credit's due on that one. But, so they took this gamble. Marvel took this gamble. And the trailer landed.
Yep, and I told you about it in 2007 at Comic-Con, my very first Comic-Con.
Yep.
I went in there, And this is one of those times, my brothers and sisters, where it didn't take too long to get into Hall H in San Diego. Wasn't that bad?
Yeah. It didn't. It wasn't. You had to sleep over 2 nights.
It was still about comic books.
Yes.
Right.
And in fact,
somewhat, yeah.
It wasn't even packed in there. It was about maybe 2/3 full, the hall at the time. So it wasn't even like, completely.
You're going to tell your grandchildren this story, aren't you? I remember when Hall H, you could walk right in.
But yeah, they attached it to the Hulk, because remember at the same time the Incredible Hulk movie was coming out with Edward Norton and Liv Tyler.
Through Universal.
And remember, guys, Iron Man was being distributed through Paramount.
Yes, it was.
That's true.
Yes.
That's an interesting mashup.
Because Disney had not yet bought Marvel. It would be a year later.
Iron Man 2 was the first movie through the Disney banner.
Yes, that is correct. And I remember when I sat down, they're doing their panel, Favreau, what's her name? Oh my goodness. What's the blonde lady's name?
Oh,
I almost said Lisa Kudrow. Yes, thank you.
Gwyneth
Paltrow.
You were close.
I was close.
Daughter of Blythe Danner.
Blythe Danner, yes. And Bruce Paltrow. She was like overwhelmed by the crowd, she's like, oh my God, never been to a comic book convention before. She seemed a little excited, very genuine. And then of course, Robert Downey Jr. obviously stole the show. Jon Favreau also stole the show. And what was cool is that when that trailer came on, we didn't know what to expect. And when the trailer was over, the crowd went crazy. We're all clapping. We're all excited.
Everybody was jerking each other off.
A little bit of that going on.
Wow, it's one of those shows.
A little bit going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so good that at the end of the panel, people, hey, can you play it again? Play it again. Play it again. They played it again.
They were chanting. They were chanting for it, and they probably had to take a moment to replay it.
Yes.
Because now they expect that.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, did you want to see it again? And like 5 people are like, yeah, all right. Especially for Warner Brothers stuff.
Right.
Yeah, okay, I'll see it. There's a guy in the back, oh no. But the rest of the people are like, I guess.
The only other movie that drew that kind of excitement for a trailer, and you were actually there with me for this, was the Deadpool trailer, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
You remember how people went crazy?
Yeah, I took my pants off.
I know you did. I saw you run up to Ryan Reynolds and ask for a little favor.
I was like, Ryan Reynolds, sign my asshole.
And I don't even like Canadians.
But it was awesome. I mean, when I saw that trailer, I had to report back to you and the other people in our group. I said, guys, Iron Man, I think
it was a 5-page report with charts and graphs.
Yes, charts and graphs too. I mean, I was
very
excited.
well detailed.
Very well detailed. I mean, I went back to our club and telling everybody, yo, the Iron Man trailer, it's awesome.
That
Iron Man
shit's
trailer is
lit.
awesome.
Yo, it's gonna be off the hook.
And some people were skeptical. Man, you know what, man? I don't know about that.
And you were like, I'll fucking kill you.
And then on that fateful day of that first weekend of May of 2008, I was proven correct.
And it made a lot of money.
$80 million, I believe it opened at.
Yeah,
so. I
mean, a lot of money.
A lot of money. I mean, everybody was going crazy. We had it in the Cinerama Dome.
It started something. It started the Marvel Universe.
Yes, it did.
It started 10 years where we're at today, watching Avengers films, or things that I've never thought that I would see.
Especially the end credit scene when they set it up.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you also as well, something to think about, when the first Avengers movie was made, Robert Downey Jr. made 50 times what the other Avengers did. Mm-hmm. And I would say a lot of the reason is because you can't debate it. Robert as Iron Man was the draw.
Yep.
You don't necessarily, and I like Captain America's movies, especially the second one. Yeah. But I don't view him as a draw. I think that Captain America is the draw. Or even Edward Norton, to me, not the draw.
Nope.
It's the character.
But Robert Downey, that's the draw.
He's the only one. You're right. He's the only one in the Marvel Universe that you were like, oh, I want to go see that Robert Downey Jr. movie. Not, I want to go see that Iron Man movie.
Or the Chris Hemsworth movie.
There's one slight exception. I would say Samuel Jackson's given love a little bit as Nick Fury. It's like you can't see anyone else.
But he's so minor in comparison.
Minor in comparison.
But he doesn't have his own franchise. I would agree with you that Sam is a draw.
Sam's a draw.
He has been for years.
But yes, you're absolutely right. But yeah,
Snakes on a Plane made like 30-some million opening.
Because he's there.
Yeah, just because of him. It didn't make what they thought, but it's insane to think that stupid idea made so much money. As much money as it did.
Man, and just on an aside, how good was The Negotiator with Sam Jackson and Kevin Spacey?
That was great. Yeah, that
you
was
know
such
what?
a
I think
good
that came out about 20 years ago as well.
96.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Directed by F. Gary Gray.
F. Gary Gray.
Yeah.
That was his first big budget movie.
Yeah, and no one ever heard of him.
Yeah, because before that he did was it Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Thursday.
It was Thursday.
Yeah. So actually it wasn't even Friday.
So that's a forgotten classic from the 90s, folks. Go see The Negotiator.
So before we, like we're talking about the future and Marvel and everything, but let's rewind a little bit.
Yeah, let's share your.
Now-
We want to share your experiences.
Right. Yeah, we want to know what happened, how this came to be, and why the hell, when I'm in the movie theater, am I going, oh, great, that's Darin? Because you were so visibly seen in this film. You were, if I'm correct, you were it was like near the beginning.
It was not near the beginning.
Was not near the
About
beginning?
an hour in.
About an hour in. Boy, it always felt like near the beginning. So you were about an hour in, and it was a bar scene.
It was a charity fundraiser
That's
for
right.
firefighters.
Okay.
And by this point in the movie, Iron Man had basically just been working and working and working. And, essentially Pepper Potts says, you need to relax and be seen in public, kind of like The Dark Knight. How
That's
it's like,
right.
oh, you have to be seen in public, so let's put you here.
And you, if I'm correct, served him a drink?
I did serve him a drink.
Right.
Absolutely.
You served Tony Stark.
I
drink.
did.
He basically got him on the drunken path. The demon in a bottle is Darin.
Started with Darin.
Darin is the demon in a bottle.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody knew that, but yeah.
Well,
it's true.
yeah, it is. The thing is, like, there's an interesting story that I want to share about how this all kind of came to be. Because I was the bartender in Iron Man, and yeah, very visible, and had a great experience over there. So where it started was, the way I actually got booked is my brother Eric called the casting director and pretended to be me, because I could not leave the set of The King of Queens, which was shooting their final episode ever.
Oh.
So I gave my brother the information. I said, hey, here's if they ask, they're always asked these questions. And he actually called and got me booked. I apparently was the first submission too. And he's like, oh, do you have bartending experience? Which of course I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But he said I had lots of it. So
Right, the classic, oh yeah, I can drive a motorcycle.
And look, sometimes if you got to be a bartender, that doesn't hurt you. But if it's like, yeah, I know how to operate a Segway. Oh yeah, you can get embarrassed in a real hurry.
Yeah. And let's preface this with something that's very important, I feel. Who was your favorite superhero?
Tony Stark, Iron Man.
Growing up, Darin's favorite superhero was Iron Man.
Really?
Now, I don't know how many kids can say that what they grew up idolizing and loving in comic book form materialized into them being on the set and in the film with. Like, only certain people can dream that and materialize that, and you're one of very few that could. That's exceptional to me.
No, you're correct. I mean, I felt the exact same way, and kind of what made me fall in love with Iron Man is, where I grew up, I knew a few people that were wealthy people, and in my experience in dealing with wealthier people, they were always so generous to me and always so nice to me. And essentially, what is Tony Stark? A wealthy person who doesn't have to do anything that he's doing in these comic books. So it really resonated to me. On top of the fact I thought he was cool. I always pictured him as like a very young Tom Selleck.
There you go.
6'5", 6'6", real brooding, real, kind of James Bondy, but a little rougher, real smart guy, but at the same time super down to earth. And that's kind of how I really related to Iron Man.
I think the closest I got to the Iron Man whole thing was I seated Robert Downey Jr. in the theater to watch Iron Man.
Did you know?
Yeah. And I told him,
Did you greet the show too?
No, I don't think I did. Or did I? No, yes, I did. I did greet the show because I was really nervous because of that. But when I seated him, I told him, I said, man, and I did the usual bullshit thing. I was like, man, I love your work. I was like, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was amazing. And he did the usual, smiled and was like, oh, thank you so much. He's very kind, very nice, a very warm smile. But, it was something very safe. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't like, well, let's take a picture together. Or, I'm going to give you a hug or anything like that. No, it was just, it was very nice. He was a very warm man, and it was a very exciting moment for me. And then, I immediately, later, I called my parents, and I was like, well, guess who met Robert Downey Jr., Dad?
And that's, that experience that he had with you. I mean, Robert, in my experience, I spent 3 nights with him.
Oh my!
You don't say.
Scandalous!
Wow.
Hello.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of interaction with Robert in between takes, and obviously you get to talk to people and you observe them. And it's interesting you mentioned that because I think he did something a little risky. There was a person, as you know, in a town like this, not everybody has the same experience. Not everybody is living on top of the world. Not everybody's...
Except you, sir.
Yes, I try my hardest. But no, not everybody has the best of luck. And there was a gentleman, and I could just tell he was a desperate performer because when I was in between takes, he was performing Shakespeare loudly.
Really?
He was doing sonnets. It was really interesting. And he very well may have just got out of prison. I'll be honest with you. Like, he was a little too, I don't know. Like, people act a certain way.
Too brute, motherfucker.
To be or not to be.
People
Dead, bitch.
No, it was actually lend me your ears. I can remember like it was
So I
yesterday.
can cut it off.
But the thing is like, this gentleman approached Robert Downey, and Robert, and maybe it's his experience because remember, Robert spent some time in prison. Robert has, lived. He has dealt with certain people you or I would never deal with in a dark alley.
That's true.
And he stood there, to his credit. And this gentleman walked up and said he was so inspired and he really is looking forward to the day he can work with him as an actor because of this. And, the security started inching close. And to Robert's credit, he gave a little wave of his hand and said, you can stay. It's fine. He stood there and he took it. And I found that to be a very classy maneuver because there were very few people watching him do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I have a respect. That's one thing I respect about Robert, just piggybacking off of what you said.
Right.
Donald.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a class act as far as like the way he interacts with people, especially kids and stuff.
He has social intelligence.
Yeah, you'll see that in media and stuff
Right,
too.
he has that
as well.
social and emotional intelligence.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's something that comes with humbling.
Unlike
of a person.
Edward Norton, who doesn't have that.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
Well,
Yes.
he very well may. I've just never seen
Never
it.
seen it, exactly.
He hides that shit. Edward Norton hides that stuff in
Yes.
private. It's not a public kindness that he shows. Apparently.
Indeed.
So the thing is, it's interesting. So the first day that I'm there, they're just like, "Hey, we're ready for you." It's just me and my co-bartender Paul. Very nice man. Haven't seen him since the movie, unfortunately, but a very nice man. We were both behind the bar, and I had my little white tuxedo jacket, which kind of made me laugh. And what's interesting is I go behind the bar and I'm just standing there and they're doing a rehearsal. Now, in a film rehearsal, it's a little different than a TV rehearsal. A TV rehearsal is just a formality. It's irritating. But like, as Kevin Costner, once told me, he said, as an actor, you fight for rehearsals when you're in movies. And they were spending a lot of time in rehearsal. And Robert peeked over his shoulder while he was in the scene with Jon Favreau, as well as the DP, Maddie Libatique, I believe, who's been used a few times by Darren Aronofsky. And he looked over his shoulder and he just goes, "Hey." And he did a little hand wave and is basically told everybody in that circle, "I want to walk over and meet my bartenders." Which is great. It made you really feel like you're part of the process.
Right.
Jon Favreau
Helps him out.
He shook my hand. John, I didn't get to know John very well, but I could tell that he came over and did this to kind of please Robert because, John was clearly in his vision at that point.
Of course.
He was
Right. You get in your own
really
head.
thinking about
he's in his
what
head.
he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And John is a very visual director, which a lot of people don't know. I mean, if you look at the set pieces in Elf and the way that he set things up,
yeah.
He's a very visual director. And Robert kind of came over, chatted a little bit, and, then he went, got his thing. I went and relaxed. And, the first scene comes up, and he walks over to me before the first take, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to tip you $100. I said,
Okay.
That's awesome. Be like, "You could have tipped me $1. I'm still going to smile. I think, because I get the scene. No, I'm going to tip you $100. Long story short, I did eventually get $100 from Robert Downey Jr.
Nice.
Do you still have the $100 bill, sir? Did you have it signed?
I do not have that $100 bill. I do not have it signed. I have to be honest. I'm not much of a fan type. No disrespect to people that are, but it's really not my thing. I keep the memories in my head. It's weird. If I take pictures generally with a famous person, I actually don't put them on social media. It's just a preference, I like to
Keep it to yourself.
Maybe it's in my house or something like that.
I actually agree with you on that one.
Right, I've seen the picture of you and Johnny Depp on your wall.
Yeah, exactly. And that only made social media because my mother posted it. Now it's I'm not going to tell my mother not to post photos of me.
Right. Well, no. I know your mother. You better not do that.
So he comes over and does that. Okay, we do a take. Then, we move along, whatever. Next scene comes up, and he comes over to me right before the first thing. He's like, "Hey, Darin, I got really good news." And he's chewing gum because Robert chews a lot of gum. It's not because he's a freak or whatever. He believes in the muscles, the chop muscles, and the way that he chews a lot of gum. Let me tell you. He said, "Hey, Darin, I just heard something really cool." Like, "Oh yeah, what's going on, man? Everything looking good in the dailies? What's the deal?" And he says to me, he's like, "I am officially now 6 weeks in the can. There's no way they can fire me." And what's funny is like,
he's right.
When I first went there, like I said, I didn't have like this massive respect for Robert. I mean, I heard a lot of my friends who are really into niche films say, Robert's it. And it's different when you watch him work personally. You have a different kind of viewpoint of how he does things. And, I've been very blessed to see very talented actors, Tim Robbins being one of them. If you watch the Gears work on him, he's so talented. I've seen, what is the name of the lady who's in Born Supremacy? Joan Allen.
Joan Allen, oh yes.
Very talented person to watch. And, when I see what he was doing, I just kind of had a very different kind of perspective. And Stan Lee came. Stan Lee actually went to background holding, and they said, "Mr. Lee, we have a trailer for you." And he's like, "Yeah, but this is where all the girls are."
Of course he'd say something like that.
Yeah.
So it was really cool that Stan was there, and, Jeff Bridges was there as well, and Jeff Bridges I have great respect for.
And Jeff Bridges, if I recall, uses the same stand-in, right?
I'm not sure.
I think he's the actor. He has like a stand-in he's been using for years, and then that person follows him everywhere he goes. Every movie he said he.
Well, that guy's got a
lifetime job. Yeah.
Well, one story I heard from a very, very close friend about Jeff Bridges. He was working on him in a movie called K-Pax. Okay?
Oh yes, Kevin Spacey, isn't it?
Yeah, with Kevin Spacey.
Can't get away from him.
And Jeff Bridges came up to my friend Jamard, and he said, "Excuse me, may I take your photo?" And he said, "I guess so, but I'd like to ask you why." And he says, "Well, I've spent a lot of days here with you, and I've had a very pleasant experience interacting with you. And what I like to do is the people that I really like working with, I take their photo, and I make a collage on a poster board, and then I get photocopies, and I give them to the people who are in the photos."
Oh, nice.
As a memory of of working. And, it was really cool. And after, of course, spending 3 days there, seeing Gwyneth Paltrow, who looked wonderful in person. By the way, she looked outstanding.
Okay.
One story that always kind of sticks with me. I was working part-time at Universal Studios. I helped open the Transformer ride. I was a part-time employee, and there was a gentleman, from out of town. He was autistic, I believe. And he had come from Missouri just to ride this ride. And, I have an oldest brother who's autistic as well. So it's like, I understand the importance in kind of how he's functioning. So he goes to see it and everything. And they're like, "So what do you do out here, sir?" And I said, "Well, I'm an actor." And they said, "What have you been in?" I'm like, "Well, I was a bartender in Iron Man." They're like, "Oh, that's really neat." I'm like, "Oh, okay. That's nice." They're being super complimentary. 6 weeks pass. I get called in the office by my supervisor, and he said, "Darin, I wanted to call you in here personally because I want you to read a letter that someone said about you." They said, "Not only did I give exceptional service, was I very kind and informative, but he told us that he was an Iron Man. We went home, we saw him in Iron Man, and we were blown away." So the fact that they actually were not only interested, they went home, watched it, and sent the letter back. He said, "I've never seen anything like that." So for this many reasons, the universe always points toward Iron Man for me.
There you go.
And it's a very, very wonderful experience to have, and it's something I just won't soon forget. I actually, taking notes before the show, it was really
Sentimental
for me to take all these notes. So I was really excited when you guys asked me to be a part of this.
Hey, we appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry to interrupt, everyone. Just wanted to mention real quick about a shop in Canoga Park, California called Spiro's Heroes. Elliot, the proprietor of the store, has over 300,000 books in what's called the Temple of Comics. That's Spiro Heroes in Canoga Park, spirosheroes.com. Before we close out, is there any other little tidbits or anything that you want to mention?
Any other nuggets?
You know, I sat in the front row of a Q&A. I was on the SAG board. I had never done this before. I was doing a front row thing, and my father was in town, so it was extra special. He's like, hey, we were sitting in the fifth row of this movie, and he's like, hey, can we go to the front? I said, why would you go to the front? He's like, please, let's just go to the front. I know I'd like to see this Q&A up close. And I like, oh, okay, so the movie's not quite so important, the Q&A. So we went to go see The Judge. And Robert Duvall, my second favorite living actor.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
And
sir.
Robert Downey were giving their thing, and it was just kind of fun to sit next to my dad, and he's like, that's Robert Downey Jr. You know, that's, you should go up there and see if he remembers you. And I was like, man, I would love to do that because it'd be great. But unfortunately, we didn't get that opportunity. But it's funny to see Robert, and all those memories just come right back in your head. And that's how you know it's a great experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome. I've always wanted to bring this story on to the pod because I always thought it was a very nice, very sweet, kind of a local boy, dreams big, comes out and gets to hang out not only with somebody that's a class act, but with a character that is a huge part of their childhood that they idolize. So that's something that's a sweet story that you don't get too often on the air, especially in podcasts and stuff. A lot of it's bitter and there's some nastiness,
vindictiveness.
And you get right into the grit and the dirt. Yeah. But it's always nice to hear some good stories like that.
A young man who came west and through hard work and perseverance and a little bit of luck, he got it.
And a phone call by his brother pretending to be him.
A phone call by his brother. Now, by the way, did you share some of the $50,000 you got for that movie with your brother?
You know what? Eric's one of those people that we have kind of an unwritten rule, and Eric does very well. We do not exchange money with each other. Like, we'll do gifts. We'll do gifts and stuff, but he called me up one time. He's a wonderful person. And he said to me, I believe you've met him once, Kevin.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have.
He said to me, he's like, if you ever need money, give me a call. And I said, if I ever need money, you're the last person I'll call. And it's not out of disrespect. It's out of respect.
There you go.
So
there you go. And by the way, I was kidding about that. I have no idea how much you got paid. It's none of my business, but but I'm sure you were compensated well. And
if it was $50,000, he wouldn't be sitting here with us, Kevin.
Well, that's 10 years ago. You can both 50,000 in 10 years.
Do you know how long $50,000 lasts in Los Angeles?
Yeah, but
you don't want it to last long.
That's true. Well, you would have went to Vegas.
I bet to Vegas, yeah.
I mean, you're an investment guy. We'd put in investments, and he would own stock, and then eventually, he would have us rubbing his feet.
There you go.
Getting him drinks and stuff. But I digress. Anyway, that's a great story. We'll have to hear another one sometime. Maybe the classic Harrison Ford stories.
That'd be a good one.
Of the Indiana Jones saga.
Which came out the same year, in 2008.
Man, if you
Interestingly enough.
If you want to talk about a situation where, once again, you kind of wake up in the morning and you're like, wow, I am about to be on set with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. You never actually think it's going to happen. You grow up watching Indiana Jones. You never think it's going to happen, but it did happen.
That's great. Well, that'll be for another time. But
yes.
In the meantime, we just want to thank you for listening. Please check out our podcast on iTunes,
YouTube,
Facebook. We have some stuff on there.
Check us out on Instagram.
Yep, Instagram as well. Twitter, we're on there. And always, if you can't check us out there, check us out over at a place where they might sell some comics, because that's probably where we'll see you.
At the comic shop.
This has been The Real Short Box. We'll see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening.